I just wanted to be considered as, one of those guys that was good enough to go with anybody. Coaching was one of my biggest joys in wrestling. Biggest opportunity was getting accepted to OVW camp. Wrestling's a fun business, but it's a business. He made me see the, black and white TV. Now everything's in color. Keep your eyes and ears open and keep your mouth shut. I consider him my greatest opponent. Jersey All Pro was a place that I wanted to get into for a long time. I want to put you and Joe together and call you the Southside Players Club. I want to put you and Fallah together as a tag team, call you the Money in the Miles. And, we got emails for the next one, and they said they want to sign you to a 1-year deal.
Call it how I see it, straight talk, no disguise. So the slang dripping, got the truth in my eyes. Might like gavel, every word lay it down. Coach C in the booth, turn the game all around. Yeah, it's Coach C, he the best for business. It's Coach C, he the best for business. Yeah, I'm sharp as a tack when I call the play-by-play. Every dog got his day, and I make the crowd stay. Cause every week we go live on a Wednesday. Dressing so sharp, that's the reason why your friends stay. The youngest in the game to do it, best for business. Coach C is the truth and everybody gonna witness. Love entertainment, you swear it's your destiny. Link with Coach C, we can talk about your legacy. It's Coach C, he the best for business. It's Coach C, he the best for business.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to another edition of Best for Business. This one I'm pumped for. Mario Bokara, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm glad people still want to talk to me.
Well, I told you at times, I remember watching you. I remember seeing you live at Wrestling As Tomorrow. I think I was like 12 years old or even prior to that watching you. But to see everything and to see at 20 years old now the impact you've still had, especially on some of the people I commentate. So thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you very much. It means a lot to, still leave something behind for people. So it's coaching was one of my biggest joys in wrestling. So I'm happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk pro wrestling. So you've had such a big impact on so many people, but I'm curious for you originally, what was it about wrestling that made you want to get involved in it?
Well, my mom was always big about following your dreams and chasing, things. And if you want something you want to do it. Wrestling was always just I was always just drawn to it because I feel like everybody kind of has a similar story to it. They remember when they first watched it. So mine was like Saturday night's main event when it was Hogan and Andre and they did the double Hebner turn.
Yeah.
So I was even so young, staying up that late for me is not so I fell asleep in the middle of everything. And I asked my dad what happened. And when he told me, I was like, no way. I was like, there's no way. So then I had to find out for myself. And then I go to the video store and there was tapes. And then there was, I had the first action figure I ever got was a Hogan rubber one, the LJN. Oh, yeah. I got that from a family member. And then I saw him on TV and I was like, oh my God, so I was just drawn to, all of it, everything from it, just the theatrics to it. He-Man was big for me when I was young for, characters. So it was I was just always into that. And these were real life superheroes. So, and then eventually at one point it was the younger generation, Bret Hart's and the Shawn Michaels and those guys started, getting, and it was okay, well, maybe this is actually possible. And you start realizing that it's an actual career and it's an actual thing that people are doing. So,
yeah,
it was hey, why, that was always it. That was all I ever wanted to do was be a wrestler.
Wow. So you talk about following the dream. I'm curious, what age do you start to pursue and think that this is something that you can actually start doing?
I started physically training when I was 19 years old.
Okay.
I'm 45 now, but, back when I was 19, I started, it was February of 2000. Mm-hmm. And obviously, there's not so easy to find schools and things like that, but I always kind of knew it when I was 12 or 13. So when I was growing up, I did amateur wrestling. I went to drama club. I did theaters. I did the school play. I did all that stuff just because I knew I was wrestling is sports and acting. So it was I always just kind of was grooming myself for that stuff throughout high school. So I did that for 4 or 5 years growing up. And then I finally found a school through somebody. It was ECPW, East Coast Professional Wrestling in Lake Hiawatha. A friend of mine knew somebody that was a wrestler. His name was Sure Thing Ryan Wing, and he was based in Jersey. And they were like, dude, you should totally go. And I was like, he showed me, he's like, come get a card. So I came to his car, and in his trunk, he had his boots. And I was like, it was the first time I'd ever seen boots, like up close. And I was just like, oh, dude, this is awesome. So I went up there, met with Gino, and they were like, my parents were like, if you want to do that shit. So can I curse? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, if you want to do that shit, that's on your own, man. They're like, you're paying for it. We're not paying for it. I'm like, all right. So that was what I did. And went up there and met with him. And he was like, yeah, you can start whenever you want. So
wow.
So I did.
When you first talk about doing theater, I'm curious, like, what were some of the roles that you had doing it?
We did a school, I think it was, what was the one we did? Something about Molly, Dolly. Okay. Did a couple other theater school plays. I was background like singer because I couldn't really sing too well.
Okay.
So the main roles, but I did a lot of comedy acts too on stuff. We did do the drama club. Always had a drama show every year, and we did the guys from Saturday Night Live, the Head Bop guys.
Yeah. And
we turned it into a wrestling skit where I gave like somebody a stunner and somebody we were beating up the guys from Hanson. Wow. Remember the young kids? So we were doing that stuff. I did commercial stuff like the Snickers commercial. We did a playoff of Rain Man. So we got to do a bunch of different skits. So it was really cool. It was a lot of singing and dancing though too for some stuff. So I mean, being like captain of the football team and high school senior, and then you go to singing Hello Dolly on stage. It was but I still wrestled too. In our senior year, the team went undefeated.
Wow.
But I had lost maybe like one or two matches throughout the year, which was still not bad. But usually when I was younger, I was wrestling heavier guys. And finally, when I was a senior, I was actually at my weight class, which again still helped because by the time you start wrestling people your own size, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So
was it easy? Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, was it easy making the transition from doing originally amateur wrestling to professional wrestling?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of really just felt pretty natural because the top bottom positions and doing things and wrestling for so long, a lot of it was like I'd grab like a double wrist lock on somebody on the ground. Everybody was like, wow, you're really technical. And it's like, you just kind of you already have that flow to it. But the amateur definitely helped for just in general with rolling and feeling comfortable and looking more believable than I feel like somebody that's never grappled before at all. Having a ground game. When I was younger too, my legs were good, so I was able to, people were like, you throw a nice drop kick, you do a good leg drop, you have good height, you do some things well. And, I like bumping around too, but, you go back now and realize you should probably save some of those. One piece of advice I can give young guys is don't just throw yourself on the floor for no reason. Like, I know it's fun. Sometimes, you just want to get it out, but it really, the bump card's a real thing. So, but yeah, amateur definitely helped me. It was pretty easy. It felt natural when I got in. It really did. It felt pretty natural to me.
Nice. Gonna say, when I look at your career, you have done so much. But one thing I was curious off the rip, I remember watching old Cyberspace footage, but how does the name Most Sexy come in for you?
Oh boy. Yeah. So when I started training, I was, big Shawn Michaels fan, and, they were trying to figure out names, and Mo was like my nickname in high school. I don't know how somebody came up with it, but it was just my nickname. And, then we were, they were like, well, who do you like? And I said, Shawn Michaels and all these things. And then they were like, I wasn't really much of a player when growing up anyway. So I didn't date much, but, and they somehow were throwing names together, and they're like, Most Sexy. And I'm like, no. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm not, no, I'm not doing that. They're like, oh yeah, that's it. That's what we're calling you. So I'm like, oh man. So that kind of came about. And then, once I kind of started to branch, like you said, Cyberspace was my first real promotion that I went to, because I did ring crew for like 2 years. I drove the ring truck as soon as I started training, because it was like, you had to get experience, and they didn't want you working for anybody else. So if you were working for the person who they rented the ring, with, then they were okay with it. They really didn't want you working for anybody else back in the day, and we all knew, like, as the business changed, like we knew that you can't stay in one spot and get noticed or get work, or, social media wasn't there. There wasn't, you had to get a tape to somebody, and the odds of somebody watching the tape was like, it was just non-existent. So I did that for like 2 years. And as I was realizing, like that was a gimmick name and I wasn't really a gimmick. So people had already kind of knew me after a couple of years, at least around. So I just changed it to Sexton because I knew somebody that went to my school. Their last name was Sexton.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, sounds similar. It's a regular name ish. I can just, get away with it. So that was kind of that was pretty much how I did it. And then when I went to Cyberspace, the first show I was there, they had this Loud Idiot section.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they called themselves. They had t-shirts and there was like 30 of them, and they were called the Loud Idiot section, and they like were going nuts. Yeah. And I got in the back and they were like, how many people did you bring? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, you don't know them? And I was like, no, I never met them before in my life. And they were like, bro, you're booked for every show. And I was like, awesome. So I was just like, it was great.
Yeah. When you look at your career, you talk about how cyberspace is big, but when you look at the beginning, what would you consider your first big opportunity when it comes to professional wrestling?
Oh, man. ECPW definitely gave me a lot of big opportunities to do. I was like, for me, I was happy just being there. Yeah. Like I didn't, I was like, if that was all it was, I was cool.
Yeah.
Like I ended up teaming with this, another guy there, Red Hot Russ, and we were Hot and Sexy. That was the tag team.
Where did the idea come from?
He was new too. He literally started training like maybe a couple months before me. And we were just like, usually that's kind of the best way to get guys working together too, is tag team. Mm-hmm. And even, when I was at Rips at OVW, I'm sure I'll talk about that, but that was like, everything was always tag matches. Yeah. So that was like kind of the best way to get your feet wet and learn and just be in there. So we would usually throw guys together, and then we started kind of clicking and gelling, and, they put the tag titles on us. So that kind of ran for a while too. It was like, I was with ECPW for like 4 or 5 years before I really started getting into cyberspace and getting out there. Wow. But Ring Crew was big. I said Ring Crew was huge for opportunities because you met people and you got booked on shows. Usually got to do something. But then at ECPW, I won like the TV title from Red Hot Russ. At one point, we ended up feuding, and he was the TV title. So he was the world champion. I won the TV title. Andrew Anderson, Johnny Thunder, Red Hot Russ, and myself were like the horsemen of ECPW, and we worked with each other, against each other, like teams and everything. So I ended up at some point, I won the TV title, and then I won the heavyweight title, and so I was like the youngest Grand Slam champion ever at like ECPW. Wow. So that to me was like, I got to have 2 cage matches there that were like, like we really got to tell stories and get involved in stuff. In the cage matches, I had one with Russ at Menon Arena, and then I had one with Andrew Anderson that actually Sergeant Slaughter was there. And he watched that cage match, and after the cage match, he came up to me and he's like, that's one of the best cage matches I've ever seen. Wow. Like, and I was just like blown away, like, so we got tables involved, and like it was, so I really had a lot of big opportunities, I felt like, with ECPW too. But it really didn't start till I knew TNA guys were all booked at Cyberspace. So those were like big name guys, and you were like, that was getting to be hot. So it was kind of like, ECW wasn't like really hardcore stuff wasn't my like thing either. I was also kind of like a young white meat baby face. So I was just trying to get, to the next level at that point. Cause after even too, that was like once I was working with ECPW, as soon as like I won the title, I was like, oh wow. Then I'm like, what am I going to do now? Like what's next? Like I never thought about that. Yeah. Cause it was just like, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that came to my mind was, oh wow, what am I going to do next now?
Mm-hmm.
So that was trying to get out and get other things done. And I was always going to seminars. I was always going to camps and training camps. I went to Al Snow ones. We went up to Massachusetts. And that was how I started going to the OVW tryouts, because that's where like Cena came from.
Mm-hmm.
Brock was there. We OVW was huge in like 2004, 3, 2000, 2005. That's where they were pumping out, big name people. So I was trying to go for those, and that's how I think I got the biggest opportunity, was getting accepted to OVW camp.
So before OVW, I want to ask you, is there a match or moment that sticks out for Cyberspace? Because even still to this day, so many of those matches still hold up.
Yeah, my favorite one's probably got to be with Julio De Niro.
Nice.
He was awesome. He was like the first guy too that I really got to do something with there, and we had a one-on-one that I was really, really happy with. And then I remember the finish ended up being like, I was used to do a frog splash, and I went for the frog splash, and he got up and he hit me with an RKO.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, like I think like back then it was like, got a huge reaction, and it was a great finish, and like I was super proud of that match. And then at one point he was looking for a tag partner. They did some kind of storyline with us, and they were looking, he needed a partner, because we had a little bit of a feud going on, and they had like hit my music, and I came out and place popped.
Yeah.
And like I was in his corner, and I'm waiting for the hot tag, and like we do it, and somehow I ended up getting pinned. And the crowd was pretty pissed, because they were like, they wanted us to win like the tag. It was like for like tag titles or something, and they were like, so people were like, dude, they dropped the ball, and they were like, do what they tell you to do, man. That's not my decision, like, so, but I can agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's not my decision. But Julio was definitely, that particular match sticks out in my mind, because he was one of the guys that really helped me when I was there, and he was always super nice, and we always kept in touch too throughout the years.
Nice.
As things went on. But yeah, there was just so many big matches there too, like Abyss and Mana. Like there were so many big name guys that came through there, and it was like, that was the first time I ever met CM Punk. Like,
wow.
Like just crazy. Like it was just so many talented people that were there.
And it's not even like there's guys like CM Punk there, but there's also young upstarts like Arcadia started there. SAT had a big impact. Like that roster was stacked.
Oh yeah, and to me, those guys were already stars. Like from just being out on like Jersey All Pro or other places. I met so many people riding in the truck, and they were on shows with big names, and that was the thing when I was kind of coming up. We did shows with a lot of legends from ECPW, which was still awesome, like Jimmy Snuka and Tito Santana, and even today they still do a lot of shows with the legends, which was amazing to me. Like even just getting to work with like Tito Santana was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, so, and then these guys become like your friends, even Tom Brandy is still like the Patriot when I was younger, and he was there, and like he's still somebody that was just an awesome guy, and you were like, wow, these guys are like my friends.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty incredible. So
when you mentioned OVW and curious for when you were there, what was like a day in the life for you?
So they said they had the tryout camps. I went down, I think it was like maybe 2004, and they were like, Rip Rogers, they were pretty, straightforward, and they were like, hey, you need to work on your body. You need to get bigger. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, okay. And the next year I tried to apply for the second camp, and they were like, you got to wait till the next one. They said, you can't come, right back, that they still have people. I'm like, all right. They came back like a year later, and they were like, well, you did everything that you needed to do to get better. They're like, your body still sucks. But I was like, all right, like I wasn't, but that was also like Land of the Giants. I mean, guys were, I test in performance enhancing drugs or something that have been in the business for a long time.
Yeah.
And at that time, they were pretty substantial. So, that's kind of like, for them telling you like your body sucks and you need to fix that. It's kind of like, okay, well, that's what they want you to do, or, without telling you necessarily.
You're right. Yeah.
But it was, Some people didn't have jobs. I got a job right away. I ended up working at like GNC. I worked in retail. I managed a store, so I was a full time worker.
Hmm.
And then I would wrestle at night for classes and stuff. So class was like 3 nights a week, and then we had TV was on Wednesday night, so we had to be there for that pretty much in the crowd cheering. And then they had some weekend shows and stuff. People would try to go on. I didn't really get to do much of that because I was working, so it was a pretty constant grind. But the training was, like I said, it was, we do like an hour worth of grappling and tag matches with Rip on the fly, and training was pretty intense. And that was, I always attributed that to like, it was like college to me. Like
Okay.
ECBW was high school. This was college.
Yeah.
And essentially this was like my college, because I didn't really go away to college, or, wrestling was my, my business, or that was my field. So
Yeah.
this was like college to me. And it really, it was a little bit of adjustment when I first got there.
Hmm.
Just being young and immature, I think. And then realizing that, okay, like this is, like wrestling's a fun business, but it's a business.
Yeah.
And it's, like it just happens to be that there's a lot of young people in it, and they, you think it's all fun and games, but it's not. There's money, there's real money involved, there's real business, there's real risk, there's buildings, there's rent, there's insurance, there's ticket prices, there's roster payments, there's it's a whole other thing. So
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was pretty grueling, constant. It was just go to work, go to practice, go to work, go to practice, go to work, go to practice. And then you're trying to, also get in good with people and do things. So, but at one point I ended up teaching the beginners class, which was a huge coup for me, because usually that was taught by like Mike Mondo. Seth Skyfire was another one that taught that. So it was usually taught by somebody that was, like a veteran or somebody pretty substantially good. You had to be considered good to do that. And Rip Rogers was just like amazing. I loved working with him. I attribute most of like, I was trained originally with Gino Caruso and Kodiak Bear, and a lot of guys helped me. But like, I always still kind of was like, Rip Rogers was my guy. He taught me, like, he made me see the, black and white TV. Now everything's in color, like a completely different view of the business life, like everything. So he was the one that was like, I want you to teach a beginner's class. And I'm like, cool. And they're like, if you teach a beginner's class, you don't got to pay to come here anymore. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So, and his thing was, don't teach them bullshit. Don't teach them Hurricane Rondas. Don't teach them top rope stuff. Teach them our drills. Get them ready for my class. So when they come to my class, I don't got to blow the whistle and stop and get them on track. I'm like, all right. So we had this drill called High Spot, which was a pretty intricate drill.
Okay.
And at one point, I was running it with the beginners class, and people were like, "You're running High Spot with them?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "How?" I'm like, "I just slowed everything down. I don't know, And they were like, and we had a couple kids that were ready, and sent them off to Rip's class, and they were slid right in. And he was like, they were like, "Good job, man. Let's keep going." And at one point I had like 30, 35 kids training at the school there. So I was still doing my training, but at the same point I was there an extra night, doing a beginner's class, getting tuition, taking tuition, leaving money. And I had a key to the school, and then even too, it was like, that was the time they had signed Kelly and Alicia Fox, and they had came into the class, and they were like, "Yeah, we're here for class." And I'm like, okay. And it was like, if you got signed, that was, and you knew nothing about wrestling, or if you were pretty new, like I was your first teacher. And it was like, that like blew my mind, and because I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't have a job for WWE either. But at one point, if you got signed, you came in, I was your coach. And I'm like, that just, it blew my mind that it was like, like it was a huge, that was a big thing for me. But at the same point, I was like, I don't have a job though.
Yeah.
But, but that was a huge honor. That was great. And that was kind of what kicked off the whole coaching vibe for me.
Wow. You mentioned Rip. Is there like a lesson or something that stands out learning from him? Because like you said, he shaped you and helped you tremendously. But is there one thing that stands out you learned from him?
Um, he was always, um, keep your eyes and ears open and shut your fucking mouth. Like,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
was, like that was pretty much the biggest thing I always took away. And I've told people that to this day
Hmm.
is, keep your eyes and ears open and keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Um, and, I didn't like, when I first started too, I was kind of calling stuff too as a baby face. And you don't do that. Like when
Hmm.
I got there, that was new to me. If I was the face, he was like, you shut up, listen to the heel, and that's it. And if the match sucks, it's his fault. Okay. And then finally, like after, so once I that was hard getting used to for me, but
Yeah.
it's not really like that on the indies or when you're working with certain people. It's kind of like, everybody does, kind of contribute, but a lot of times it was just the veteran. I was always not the veteran. So I was just listening and whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of people always were trying to get advice on how do you communicate that you don't want to do something with somebody, or how do you, like,
Yeah.
how do you, I don't want to do that. It's dangerous or this and that. And sometimes you learn the hard way, but, that was one thing there that was real big was he, taught us, the traditions and like the respect of it. And, you know, um, taught us how to, like, wrestle for an hour.
Yeah.
Like that was always one too. If Rip said always had a class at Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And if you really wanted to, you would at some point do it, and you come in and you wrestle an hour-long match. So that was one too where I had set up and I did that too. And at one point he came and it was just toward the end he was calling stuff for us to do,
Yeah.
and we were just listening and doing it, but because we weren't really, I don't think ready to call
Yeah.
an hour match like that, but you could still go for an hour.
Hmm.
But we always went for an hour anyway in training. Like we had this hour train drill that was, you would change people, work an arm for a minute, switch, work an arm somebody else for a minute, and like we did that for 5 minutes, and it was work a leg, and it was now getting get heat on the arm for a minute,
Hmm.
get heat on the leg for a minute, switch people.
Yeah.
You worked with every single person in that classroom and it was an hour straight, and there was no water breaks, there was no nothing, like you were,
Hmm.
and doing that every day, it was the same thing, rinse, wash, repeat. Like a lot of people in class and training don't like that. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, it's boring, it's doing the same thing, like, yeah, that's how you get good. Like
Yeah.
it's repetition, man. Like that's just the way it works. It's with any industry, any business, any job. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So
Hmm.
learning how to do it the right way and the safe way, you know. So, but yeah, Rip was just I mean, they said that was always the biggest thing was keep your eyes and ears open and mouth shut. But man, he molded me for sure. I wish I would have had him longer. I
Yeah.
got injured down there and then I came back. So
I'm curious, is there anything that stood out when you wrestled either it was Conway on Heat or Simon Dean on Velocity? Do you have any memories from those?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Rob was awesome.
Nice.
He I knew this was actually before I went to OVW
Hmm.
because we did some extra work. They needed somebody to they were taking a look at somebody, and Dreamer was friends with some of the guys, and they were like, hey, there's an opportunity for us to work with somebody and then you can get extra work. I think one of the guys, I forget, I think it was Vic Devine got us hooked up with it, or one of the guys from Geno's, and we ended up bumping for the Great Khali.
Okay.
They were taking a look at him for the first time. So we're standing at like the tracks, and all of a sudden this limo pulls up, and he comes out of the limo, and we're like, Jesus Christ. Like,
Yeah.
we're like, he's getting signed, And then we were in there and we were doing some bumps, and then Shane McMahon walks in, and we're like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
and he was super cool, like just one of the guys, and they were like just thinking of stuff for us to do. And I was in there with Kali, and he's like, Shane's like, all right, pick him up over your head. And he's like this, and he's like holding me, and
Yeah.
we're just up there, and he's like, and Shane's like thinking while I'm up there, and he's like, just take a step forward and let him go. So he just like lets me go. And it was like, and it was such a long way down. And I remember like hearing wind like in my ears.
Wow.
And when I hit the mat, dude, like, oh man, it like, that was the first time where I was like, wow, like that hurt, you know? And I'm like, I don't want to do any more suplexes or anything else, you know, like with him. He was just a big dude, but we ended up getting extra work. And then when I got to the arena too, I think as Sergeant Slaughter remembered me from the cage match.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, I'm going to put you with Rob tonight, or, you know, because he's getting a new gimmick. And it was like it was the first match he did the Just Look at Me character.
Okay, yeah. It
was the first one he ever did. First one he ever did in that new character. And I had gone, you know, to the OVW tryouts and stuff. So we kind of talked about that. And he was just awesome. He was just such a nice guy and was great to work with. And he let me, you know, give him some ideas and some stuff. And he let me get some stuff in. Not really. I mean, I got a drop kick in. That was about it. But that was all I had. When I was a young kid, that was the only thing I had good. I was like, I throw a good drop kick, and he let me do it.
Nice.
So I remember that. And I took some good bumps. And I remember he let me hit my drop kick. I went to the second rope. And as I was flying off, he was going to hit me with a forearm and then hit his finisher. It was like feet on the ropes, spinning neck breaker.
Yeah.
And I remember when he caught me as I came off the top rope. I didn't realize it, but apparently I had blood coming down, and covered me, and the finish was everything was good. And then on the camera, you both see him and the referee both look at me like that when after the 3 count.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm great. Like, it was fine." So we were coming up, and I still had blood on my face, and so I kind of like blew a snot rocket, so it would be, you know, it was show more.
Yeah.
And I'm coming up the ramp, somebody was like, hey, Vince is behind the curtain and he hates blood, so wipe that shit. And I'm like, fuck. So now I'm like trying to wipe it off, you know, and I'm like, and Vince was there, and I got to meet him, and he was like, how was it? I was like, it was amazing. I was like, thank you so much. Like, and he was like, you know, like a job, like whatever. And that was it. And I was just like mind blown.
Yeah.
But, you know, but I think because that was from Sergeant Slaughter, you know. And the referee told me too, he said, Sarge said your cage match was way better than your match with Rob when I was laying down in the ring. So I remember that. So they were like busting on me, but yeah, it was just a great, dude. And one of my best friends in the world was like in 10 rows back.
Did
and
you
he
tell
had no
him?
idea. He had I saw him. Yeah, he had no idea that I was booked. I had no idea he was there.
Wow.
We used to go to Garden together all the time. We used to sneak. I used to sleep over his house, and we would sneak on the bus into New York City. My mom had no idea.
Wow.
And we go watch Madison Square Garden shows. He went with me to try to look for Monster Factory when I first tried to start training. We couldn't find it. And I get in the ring, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I have no idea how I got here. I'm like, but so that was, and then they were like, okay, so, you know, something's kind of going. And then they sent me for another date, and I got to, the John Laurinaitis was like, they were interested in hiring me, but as a referee. And I was at the time too, I was like, I didn't, you know, I never ref, but I was always, you know, always wanted to be a wrestler. So, but they were like, okay, we'll go to SmackDown. And he said, we'll try you out. And it was in like Connecticut or something. So I'm like, all right. So I went over to SmackDown, and I couldn't find John, you know, Laurinaitis all day or whatever. And then Simon Dean, I knew him from the Independents too.
Nice.
And he was like, oh, he's like, Mo, I never worked you. He's like, I'll work you tonight. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it was like, so I'm trying to find John Laurinaitis and be like, hey, they want me to like work tonight. Like, what do we, you know, and I'm nobody. So I, you know, like, so I get changed eventually then. Plus we were just trying to get in ring time anyway. And finally he sees me and he's like, oh, you're in your gear? Oh, I guess you're wrestling. Okay. And he like walks away, and I'm like, so, and then everybody, you know, Dreamer, I think, was talent relation too. And, you know, I said, you know, I'd like to, obviously I would like to do it. I said, you know, I'm always going to want to, you know, be a wrestler. I said, but I would, you know, like to, and he's like, he's got your info. If he wants to, he'll reach out. And I'm like, so they're kind of went that,
wow.
They're kind of went that referee job. So that's always been in the back of my head, the way that whole situation worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if I was maybe a little bit older or a little bit wiser to, the way the world worked or, business in general, because I was so young too, might have went a little bit different. But yeah, but though I remember that vividly. I remember all those very, very vividly.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome being there, but it was intimidating at the same point.
Mm-hmm. One person I want to ask you if you have memories of, do you have anything that sticks out about Danny Maff?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Like there's like my whole life revolves around Danny
Mm-hmm.
Maff. I consider him my greatest opponent, or
Nice.
like my best friend out of the ring and in the ring. I met him first at Ace with Mike Morgan, who's another great human being. I'm very grateful to Mike for everything that he did at Ace for me. I met Jay Lethal there. But that's where I met Danny Maff. And I remembered watching like the first ROH show. I think in the Hit Squad was like the first match on the tape.
Yeah.
And I remembered being like, I don't ever want to wrestle Danny Maff. I was like,
yeah,
he just like was very intimidating. And Mike had shown Danny, I think, a tape of one of the matches I had. And he was like, man, he's like, this guy's like a workhorse. And that was kind of where I ended up coming out with the workhorse monic, with adding it to my name. And I'm like, that's a good explanation of it. I'm like, I like that. So,
yeah.
And we ended up, that was where we started working stuff. And we were building feuds like there with stuff. And that was kind of like our big match. And at one point I had like a Money in the Bank contract thing there too. And something happened. Steve Corino was the champ, and he like no-showed or something, and then they had to change something, and they were building toward that match with me and Maff, and then eventually I came out and cut a promo, and I was like, we're doing it tonight, and people were calling people, telling them like Maff and Mo is happening tonight, and people were showing up, like while the show was happening. So like the crowd, it was a small place, but the crowd got bigger as the night went on. And that was like the beginning of just, lifetime of working together with each other between Ace, PWS, Wrestle Pro. I've had some of my favorite matches. Starland Ballroom I had with Danny in PWS for the title. That probably a year when I was with PWS between myself, Fallah. I mean, I've already said too, I had 2 hardcore matches with Fallah and Danny at PWS, and I consider those like top 2 all-time favorite, probably greatest that I've ever had.
Wow. What was it about those?
We, what it too is like, I remember the first one even too was when we came out, Balls Mahoney was there. I literally just posted something too about this and he was like, we came through the curtain and he was like, guys, that was like fucking incredible. He was like, storytelling. He's like, you don't get storytelling in hardcore matches. He's like, it's people just hitting each other with shit. He's like, the way you set things up, he's like, the story you guys told with it. He was like, you guys are, he was just like, and we were like, dude, like, thank you.
Yeah.
And it came out to be, because I was supposed to work Fallah in a chair match, and I had gotten chairs painted. I painted chairs. And one was a Croatian chair. I made a red, blue, white with checkered and tape. And then I took a black chair with Fallah's and I put the yellow tape around it. It looked like a gi. So we each had, like our custom chairs.
Yeah.
And Dan was supposed to have a hardcore match with Bonesaw, who somehow couldn't show up, couldn't make it. So now we were like, all right, well, what the hell are we supposed to do now? So they said that they were going to have us work together in a, on the fly. It's going to, we're going to keep our match announced, but Dan's going to cash in he had a Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
And so like Dan's going to cash in and we're going to make it a triple threat match. And we're like, all right. So we were all, talking this out beforehand, figuring out what we wanted to do. And that was, I think, part of the magic was that we were all just like, what if we did this? What if we did that? like we were talking about like stapling Eddie's tie to his head, you know, and we were like just cracking up about stuff. And, you know, we were all just, I remember we had a group chat and Fallah wasn't part of it just yet, but we had all these spots where he was taking stuff and thumbtacks and all these things. And we're like, you know, but Eric, also one of the bookers and I think owner at the time, he was involved too. So he was a big ECW fan growing up. So we were all kind of just throwing ideas out, and it was just like, man, we're like, this is going to be like nuts. And the way it panned out too was because, you know, Maff was the one that was supposed to have all this stuff for the hardcore match. So the first one, he was the one that was pulling things out and setting things up. And we were like, our reactions were like, dude, like table, you know, doors, thumbtacks, like just, I've never done that stuff either. And it's like, the reaction, it's just
organic,
like, oh my God. Like it was so much easier to get a reaction from people when, you know, you're setting something up and you're not using it. That was even the big part was like the anticipation of you pull something out and people are like, oh shit. Yeah. You know, and they're like, I want to see what he's going to do with that. And then it's like, when you change what they thought and do something else, or it doesn't execute the way they thought, it becomes, you know, we mixed powder in there. We had, Eddie was a manager. Every time we had a manager, I'm like, beautiful. Yeah. If manager's there, I'm bumping you, you know, somehow I'm doing something. It was hardcore. So that's what I said. We're like, we're going to staple your tie to your head. You know, we had staple guns. I mean, like, it was just so much fun. And the way it all panned out and the way the match went, it was just like, it was awesome. And then they wanted to do it again a month later. And I'm like, bro, I'm like, how do you expect us to top this now? Now we have to do it again later. Yeah. So that was the other one was okay, but it almost made it better because now it was like we were telling the story off of the first one. Mm-hmm. So we were setting up spots that we did in the first one and changing the way it was executed. You know, so like it was, this time I pulled out thumbtacks. I pulled out tacks this time. I said, okay, I'm ready now. Here we go. And then Danny pulled out a tack that was bigger. And he poured it all. We had the largest pile of tacks that I think anybody had ever seen. Wow. And it was like, so we were, you know, like it was just storytelling through that too. And then, you know, instead of, you know, the finish that we had there, I won the first one and we put Maff over on the second one. And it was like, you know, we did almost the exact same finish. He hit Fallah with a hammer, but this time he did it through the door. So instead of hitting Fallah with a burning hammer regular, he hit it through the door. Mm-hmm. And now instead of me trying to reverse it, he counters me and he hammers me into that big pile of thumbtacks. Wow. And covers Fallah, and that was it. And it was just like, I was happy that we were able to do that for Danny too, because he deserved it. You know, like we were able to really, you know, and Fallah too was just at that point in the story too. Fallah beat me for the title. Mm-hmm. He had a Money in the Bank kind of thing too. So I was working with Bonesaw, but that was like that was like, I considered that time there. That was like my peak, I think, for everything like that. That was my greatest time. And I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to top that. And I don't think I did with anything else afterwards. That's going to be my greatest memory from everything. And those are two of my best friends in the whole world and two of my all-time favorite matches. They're top two. That's it. I can't really even put, you know, and then I had a one-on-one with Danny at Starland Ballroom, and he was just, we got in the back and people were like, we should have had that main event. And I'm like, wow. You know, we closed the first half. I think they had Kevin Matthews and Kenny Omega at main event for Starland, which I was like, I'm not, I would put that main event too. Yeah. But, you know, we came in the back and they were like, that was, you know, even Mick Foley was there. And that was the first time I had ever really seen it. He's like, that was incredible, guys. He's like, at one point, everybody was just watching the match. So we were like, man, I'm like, that was, to get that from him too was like, I was like, it means the world. So yeah,
I was gonna say, when you talk Danny Maff and multi-man matches, there was one when I was doing research on your career that just sticks out. Is there any recollection or memories Danny Maff, Brian Danielson, and Christopher Daniels? That match is nuts.
Oh yeah, wow. Definitely remember that one. Yeah. We were with Ace, and I think I was going to work Christopher Daniels, and Danny was going to work with Brian. And there was something with WWE where I think Brian was going or something. He couldn't. Somehow it was a finished problem. We were, figuring things out, and our storyline as well to make it make sense. So we ended up. So what if we just did a 4-way? And we were like, we're like, that works.
Yeah.
So I was like, +2. I was kind of like, I really wanted to get in the ring with Daniel Bryan too at that point in my career, and I'd never worked with Christopher Daniels either. So just getting to run like a spot with the biggest thing I remember was running a spot with Bryan Danielson in the beginning, and that to me, people were just like, there's no difference between you and these guys. They're like, just, stay out of your own head and, don't, you can. And that was always, I feel like my biggest thing was I just wanted to hang. Okay. And I wanted to be able to hang with people. And I wanted people to look at me and say like, he's on the same level as them. Even if I didn't get, major exposure, become a huge superstar, but I just wanted to be considered as, one of those guys that was good enough to go with anybody. Yeah. And that was my biggest, I think, goal was to just, I can go with anybody. I didn't care if it was Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes. I didn't care who it was. I just wanted to hang. I wanted to be considered in that conversation as one of the best. Yeah. But I don't remember much of the entire match. But I do remember the aura and just the whole match itself and the setup. It's at the beginning. I do remember that. And I was just, I still had a picture of me and Brian doing the DX chop, and we had ties around our necks because that was when I think he got fired because of the neck thing with Justin Roberts. Yeah. So there was a picture of me and Brian doing the DX crotch chop, and we both have neckties on. So that's like one of my favorite pictures of all time.
Wow. You talk about doing the crotch chop. I'm curious, how was the experience wrestling the Voodoo Kid Mafia?
Oh man, they were that was like they were like my all-time favorite tag team. Yeah. So that was like, I was super maybe childish about it. Like I was like, I don't think I've ever like really kind of marked out or popped so hard to wrestle somebody, even just talking through the match. And they were so cool to work with. Nice. Both of them were Billy and Road Dogg were just so cool about going through the match and talking and doing stuff. That whole gimmick was was a little risque at the time anyway, but I think too, he was really Billy Gunn was really into our character though. He said, you guys have a hot gimmick, it looked great, entrance is hot. I think we figured out that gimmick maybe a year or two later. Really, we figured out really how to do it better. Okay. At that point, it was really not. Joe wasn't really around, and it was just kind of like, it was just not something that I really was wanting to do because it wasn't really. You have to kind of market toward family too, and that really wasn't a family. That was more just for Jersey All Pro because they were kind of a little more adult fans. And then I think we still went a little too risque for that, even in Jersey All Pro. So wasn't like too proud of that all the time. But the match in general, though, I remember working with them and it just being like, to me, I was like, how is this real life? Like I'm working with like the New Age Outlaws. You know what I mean? I'm like,
that's crazy.
I used to blast that song in my car all the time when I was growing up. Like that was part of me and my friends, that was like our shtick. And it was, oh, you didn't know, like, and we were always just, so that was like huge. And I do remember one thing was there was a spot where I told him, Road Dogg, I was going to be coming with something that was big with Rip too. Rip was like, don't run into people. Don't just run at people. Like, what are you running at them for? At least have something that you're running with, like, so I had told him that, and he didn't do anything. So I gave him a shot and I kind of potatoed him a little bit, and I felt horrible.
Yeah.
And we got in the back, and he was like, "No, man, I fucked up." He's
Wow.
like, "No, you were right." He's like, I completely forgot. And I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." I was like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "No, you're good, man." So, they had fun. It was cool. And he was like, I think that gimmick almost a little bit kind of, too, like the look of it kind of reminds me of the Guns now, like his sons. So with the way the pants were and the, certain things. So, but I'm not gonna say that we, influenced them, but I kind of was like, when I would watch it, I'd get a sense of a little bit for me, but maybe that's just me reminiscing, but yeah, that was awesome. I'm surprised you did definitely do your research, man. You definitely do your research.
I told you I was fired up for this one.
Yeah,
especially.
Man. Yeah.
I'm curious from your perspective, what was the atmosphere like wrestling for Jersey All Pro?
Jersey All Pro was a place that I wanted to get into for a long time because they were the spot. I think, in my opinion, they were still probably until everything, I guess, closed up shop. Like they were Jersey. That was it. Like they brought in the biggest names. They had the biggest shows. They were at the rec center too. They were Broadway Rec Center is the Madison Square Garden for Jersey. Like that's where the big shows happen. Like they brought in Kurt Angle. They'd bring in all the big names. And too, like Loki was a guy I remembered watching from Go, like Xavier, like Ring of Honor guys, like those guys where I'm like, if those guys don't get signed by somebody, I'm like, nobody is. Cause I was just Arcadia was there. I remember watching Jay Lethal and Dan Maff have a cage match at Jersey All Pro. I met John Moxley there. Like they just, the amount of names that came through, and I always wanted to go and be on those shows. And I didn't really, Most Exxon didn't really fit on that, that roster. It was, I was a little white meat babyface kind of. And they also had Kenny Omega would come in, like they'd bring in, they had everybody, and you really had to stand out and do something like dynamic to fit in. And I think that's where the gimmick change had to come into play, because Danny was a big Maff was a big influence on that too, because at some point we got hooked up with man, what the hell was his name now? Wow, I can't even remember his name. That's horrible. He's gonna be so mad. Pierre.
Okay.
It was they called him Fat Frank and Pierre. Wow. And they were like, and there's also Ray that were like the bookers, and Pierre was also like a manager. So he was our manager for the Southside Players Club. And he was the one that came up with the idea. Said, I want to put you and Joe together and call you the Southside Players Club. And we were like, okay, sure. He's like, we're gonna come out with girls and stuff and all that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And Maff goes to me, let me tell you something. He goes, if you don't bring the girls and if you don't bring everything, you're going to come here to the next show and they're going to be nothing. He goes, they're not going to have nothing for you to do. He goes, so you need to, if you want this to work, he goes, you need to do it yourself. I said, okay. So I bought I went to Spencer's and I bought a pink stripper pole and I drilled it to my coffee table. I had a little white coffee table. I drilled it to the coffee table. I worked at a club at the time. So I got two girls to come down for the night. I bought black lights. I strapped them to the entranceway. And we got the gear made, the hats, the everything. And music was already there. I had the music I had already had in my mind. Yeah. And I listened to that song, Framing Hanley, the Lollipop song, for like months and months and months. And then it was like when he said he wants to do Southside Players Club, I was like, I already got a song, So I kind of, it was like manifestation for me. Like, it was like, I kept thinking like, man, this would be such a great entrance song. And that first match we did, and I think that was what really got us over with the crowd, was the whole production of it. I had the black lights hit, the girls came out, they were dancing on the poles, we had champagne, we were popping bottles and stuff, and people were like, oh shit, like, what is this? You know, like it wasn't just Mo Sexton walking down the ring in a pair of shorts and kick pads.
Yeah.
So that I think that was the appeal of that helped us get into Jersey All Pro.
Nice.
And then, you know, then we had to work on the wrestling. You know, me and Joe never teamed. We basically worked each other in Ace. So then it was trying to find your stride. And we did eventually, but at the point too, it was like, you know, things were changing. Personally, for Joe and myself, industry was changing. JAP changed.
Yeah.
So I think when, you know, Frank passed too, it was, you know, a lot of things changed. But yeah, Jersey All Pro was huge. That was it. That was like, you know.
So in wrestling, you've done all this stuff. Mo Sexton, you've accomplished so much, whether it's Ace, Jersey All Pro. But when does the idea from Mario Bokara come in?
So I had injured. I've always basically got injured here and there. And last one I had was a real bad neck injury. I actually fell at work. I was working for the union. I was always doing physical labor, physical work Monday through Friday. And then I would work out. I practice or coach on weeknights here and there. And then weekends I was gone all the time. I was gone every weekend for something somewhere. And I had an accident at work where I was drilling a 4-inch hole through concrete. And I was on like my 4th hole for the day. And I'm on a ladder and I got this 80-pound drill and it caught rebar and the thing just spun me and I hit like the cross beams on the top and I fell off the ladder. Landed on my feet luckily, but I was like, man, I'm like, that was like. And then about a week or so later, I was trying to drill a hole, just a small pilot hole, like through the wall, and my hand opened up, and I had no grip strength. Like my grip strength was gone.
Wow.
So I went and I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and both of my arms would be dead, like pins and needles, but like complete, like both of them were gone. I'd wake up every hour, and it was like they were on fire.
Yeah.
So I'm like, ended up getting 5 epidural procedures. I had L4, L5, C4, C5 that were herniated so bad they were hitting nerves, and which is why I was losing grip strength. So I already had ACL repairs, you know, before I had one before that, but neck stuff is different. So you got to really be careful with that. So I had the epidural procedures, and then at one point I was back to work, and I'm doing so much physical crap at work. I'm like, well, if I can work, I can wrestle. I'm like, I'm just going to strap the armor on and make some better decisions. Yeah. So I started getting back, you know, into some stuff. And then I was just like, I don't want to do the same thing anymore. It's not working, you know, like, and if I knew too, at this point, I'm like, I need to, the risk to reward ratio is getting, you know, farther apart, and I'm getting older. And if something's going to happen, it needs to happen now.
Yeah.
I'd watched so much tape while I was hurt too. And I mean, countries were always huge. Got Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
Nikolai Volkov, Ivan Putski. Where you were from, who you were, was you.
Yeah, that defined you.
Even when I was Crowbar, Devin Storm was my therapist, physical therapy anyway.
Wow.
So he was great. He let me all the time. So anybody out there, especially the boys, I'm sure they already know, he's the best physical therapist you could ever get. And he also knows wrestling. So he knows what we go through. It's different when you go to a doctor and they think you're an amateur wrestler. They don't understand.
Yeah.
So he was like, Mario Bokara. He's like, you have a strong name. And I was like, I'm like, yeah, I guess so. But nobody also had it either. And I was like, nobody's Croatian.
Wow.
And I'm Croatian. My dad's from Croatia. Like, it's not a gimmick. Like, my dad was born in Croatia, came here when he was 21. I've been over there, you know, like a few times in my lifetime. And, you know, I just never learned how to speak it. But my mom was Italian. Everybody's Italian already. So it was like, well, let me just take the Croatian part. It's part of my Bokara's my real last name. Mario Bokara is my real name. It's my real dad's name. So I was like, and basically the character is my dad. The impersonation, like the accent, that's my dad. Like, if you meet my dad, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and essentially the character was my dad when he would drink. My dad was an angry drunk, and he would, you know, so that's where, like, the character came from. It was like the intensity, he would get red like that, and just like, and I always loved Rocky. Rocky was a huge, inspiration to everybody, but I loved the Russian and I loved Clubber Lang. So I mixed them together. So that's where the robe came, and like the high socks and stuff. And then the Russian character was also with it. So it was like, I meshed the intensity of Clubber Lang with the character of the Russian.
Wow.
So that was kind of how I combined them. And then I mixed my dad in there, and that's where I got the whole thing.
Wow.
And then it took a little bit of time to, gear and this and that. And, after about a year or so, you kind of start feeling it and you're like, okay. But I remember I did it as a soccer player because my dad was a soccer player.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for Jersey Devil for D2W out in Wharton. And we had some of the students that came out, they would try to get booked. And, I would always tell them, come, I'm working the show, come with me, or meet me there or whatever, and we'll see what we can do. That's the only way you get booked. Yeah. Was to show up at shows and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And you do good. If you don't show up, you're not getting booked. So I remember I did the character at a show, and it was the first time I'd ever did it. And it was just so easy. Like the crowd hated it. Mm-hmm. Like it was like super easy to get heat. And some of the students were like, they thought it was hysterical. They're like, dude, this is great. They were like, and they told Pat Buck, and they were like, this is one of the best things he's ever done. They were like, this is like the best character. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, he's like, would you do it here? And I'm like, I'm just going to come out and be Croatian now. And he's like, yeah, why not? I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah. So we ran with it, and off we were. It just started to evolve. Yeah.
When I look at your career, you got to check a box that a lot of people in wrestling wish. What was the experience like wrestling in Alaska?
Oh man, that was awesome. Yeah. Kevin Matthews, I'm pretty sure that's still his baby. Yeah. The way that started, but that was huge for us too to go. And it was like in a big arena too. The way they set it up, it was just it was really great getting to go over there. It was a long travel time, but we had they still do the shows out there now, but I mean we had like at the time we had I think like Joey Janela was on the show with us, MJF was there. We had so much other of our main roster guys doing it, but it was just it was anytime we got to go and do something big, like, somewhere else, because we didn't really travel too much. Like I traveled for Booker T with Reality Wrestling, a couple things, but
you guys did what was it? Team PWS down there, right?
Yeah, actually, I just saw a photo today that came up about it. It was literally a memory. I think it was like this week because it was, I think, like in December. It literally showed up this morning. Wow. Me, Maff, the Carinos, and Fallah, and it was the five of us that went down. So, but yeah, the Alaska show was great. It was such a great place to go visit too. Like it was just incredible. Mm-hmm. Like we got to go hiking and do some stuff, and we were in a house for a couple days, and it was just like a really awesome experience to be there with like your brothers, and get to like the land is beautiful, like the mountains and the snow and like everything was just incredible. Yeah. So when we were it was also a different time where like marijuana was legal over there. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. Yeah. But everybody kind of indulged in things, but it was but it was a good time. Cole Cabana was there with us too. Like it was a really good time to enjoy and be with your brothers. Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind Money in the Miles with Fallah?
Ooh, that was through Danny Cage. Danny Cage is another guy I can't say enough good things about, and I'm sad to hear that the Monster Factory closed doors. Mm-hmm. Danny had called me for a tournament. It was I think it was like a cup tournament that they were doing, and he needed somebody to work with Damian Priest, who was actually he's Punisher at the time. Yeah, this was before he was even at Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. And all that. And I was like, I came down for that, and I told Fallah, I was always like, if I'm going somewhere, I'm bringing somebody.
Yeah.
Just this way, somebody can get, get a foot in the door or get something. I'm sure you can always use somebody. So I
Absolutely.
think so. Fallah came with me, and so the tournament, I did the tournament and ended up going to the finals with Priest, and we had a great match. It was awesome, and I remember even Fallah was just like, when you put him in the armbar at the end, right before he countered and choke slammed you, he was like, it was like magic, bro. And I'm like,
Wow.
thank you. It was like, but we told the story through, I was the first time there as a heel, first time people saw me too. So, and he was their guy. So
Yeah.
I was honored to work there too. Monster Factory was where I tried to get to when I first started training.
Yeah.
It was the only school I knew of. I was going to move and live down here live by Monster Factory, but I couldn't find it because there was no GPS. There's no
Wow.
social media. Like, I had MapQuest directions that didn't give me an exact location.
Yeah.
We went down there and tried to find it, and I couldn't find it. Drove around for 8 hours. Finally came back, and we were like, well, it is what it is. It wasn't meant to be.
Wow.
But I came down there and was just constantly back and forth. And after the tournament, I banged up my back in the first match.
Yeah.
Pulled something because the ring there was a lot stiffer than I knew.
Mm-hmm.
So something pulled. But Danny's like, "Do you want to call an audible?" And I'm like, "Hell no." I'm like, "I'm gonna finish this." So we finished it, and he was like, "You're a stud, man." He's like, "I appreciate it." And I was like, "Yeah." And then just kept, "You're always welcome here whenever you want." And I was like, "All right." And I was bringing more guys down, young guys. And then at one point, like Anthony Bowens came down, TJ Crawford, I think, came down at one point too. I know a lot of guys were coming down back and forth. Bobby Wayward would come, who he ended up being with us too.
Yeah.
But he was like, "I want to put you and Fallah together as a tag team, call you the Money in the Miles, and put the tag titles on you." We were like, cool.
Yeah.
So we did that, and that just kind of kicked off too. And then lo and behold, we ended up being the longest reigning champions, like, in the history of the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does Impact Wrestling happen for you? Because you do some team with Fallah there as well.
Yep. That kind of comes through with Danny also.
Wow.
Danny was really, I feel, influential in that. But it's also not just through Danny. It was also through Pat Buck and PWS bringing in Global Force with Jeff Jarrett.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up working a match. It was me, Pat, Fallah, and we worked, I think it was a 4-way, Kevin, me, Pat, Fallah, and Kevin against Jeff, Nick Aldis, and man, I'm horrible. I can't remember.
Was it the Carino boys or no?
Yes, that's
Yeah, okay.
right. It was them. Yep,
Yeah.
It absolutely was them. So that match, kind of, we got really familiar with, Nick Aldis and Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff had really positive things about all of us to say. I still remember in the match, he would just go, "Come on, Croatia. Come on, Croatia."
Yeah.
And just like, he'd kick me and punch me, and that was it. But he was also influential too with a lot of, he always said too, when you have the heat, like, there's just that point, as soon as you get that heat and the guys in the middle of the ring, and you're just kick them once, that's it, because that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And I would just always remember that as soon as I had that, and you just take a couple shots in the middle, and that was where you just always, I don't know, that always just stuck in my mind. As soon as I got into the heat, I just always thought of Jeff Jarrett, and you just, boom, one shot, and you're like, come on, man. So we got hooked up with him, and then Danny Abyss was there too. I worked Abyss for PWS.
Mm-hmm.
And then Abyss came to the Monster Factory, and he was big fans with Danny and good friends and big supporter. And Abyss was booking at the time. Jeff went back to TNA. They were looking for global names, and Fallah was Filipino. I was Croatian, and they were looking for international flair. And QT Marshall actually got in touch with us and said that they wanted to, bring us in to do a taping or something. And next thing we know, we're down there doing the taping, and I'm teaming with Fallah, and Idris Abraham too. We did a 6-man with
Mhm.
against Garza, Laredo Kid, and man, I can't remember. Oh, it's an Indian guy. Can't remember his name. I'm horrible.
That's all right. I'll put the information in here. Don't worry.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did a 6-man, and everybody was like, "Dude, that was awesome!" Like it
Wow.
came out. Everybody was really like came out really good, and we did a couple of simple tag stuff, and next thing we know, we got emails for the next one, and they said they want to sign you to a 1-year deal. And we're like,
Wow.
that was like validation for me because I was getting old.
Yeah.
I knew it was 2017. Like I just already been through the next stuff, and I'm like, WWE kind of seemed very far. I was like 37, like so. I'm like, I'd already been told I'm too old.
Mhm.
Like people. Danny told me too. Danny Cage was like, "You're too old." It's like,
Yeah.
thanks. But he was real about it, and Danny's always been like Danny's been a brother to me. Always too. I wish I stay in touch with a lot of people more, but I owe Danny Cage a lot more of extended on the back end of my career than he may know, but
Yeah.
he really did.
You talk about people are saying that you're old and you've done so much in pro wrestling. When was the time that you decided that it was time to start winding down when it came to wrestling?
Um, really started to get when I was about like it was like 39, 2019. I was getting closer to 40. Um, but at the same point, I was starting to get more injury prone
Okay.
as I was getting older. I was starting to try to, always was trying to be leaner. Um, and Pat was like, "Well, maybe you're not a leaner guy. Like Samoa Joe's not lean. Like there's different body types." He goes, I'm like, I always had a lot of self consciousness about it though.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had gotten in the best shape as the Mario Bokara character
Yeah.
at that point. So that ended up. It just started getting to the point where it was like I'd have some momentum going, and then bam, I get hurt. I'd have momentum going, and then bam, I get hurt. Momentum, and then bam, and it was like, how many times is this like really going to happen? I already
Yeah.
had the neck stuff that was still going, so you know. And then 2019, I had tore my ACL and meniscus at literally at practice doing nothing. I was coaching and somehow I moved wrong and it completely it finally just went. But I remember I tweaked it at Impact at a taping um, against it was Alberto Del Rio's brother. It was El Hijo. I forget his name on it.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names.
Yeah.
But I remember working him and we were grappling kind of. I spun around. I remember tweaking something to my knee and going, "Ooh, that's not good."
Hmm.
And then eventually it just started to little by little, and then finally it just that was it.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd had biceps. I still have half a bicep over here. Um,
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like it's pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Certain things it just happened by trying to do a leg sweep on somebody. But I also tore that roofing. I was ripping nails in a roof and ping, like just pop.
Yeah.
So it's like on just the combination of everything, and then I got to go to work the next day too. I don't have a job, like I'm not signed. I'm not making all this money. I
Hmm.
was lucky if I got $100 from somebody, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then by the time you're paying gas and food and it's, it's not, I'm not making a lot of money doing this
Yeah.
at all. So you're just hopefully waiting for that opportunity. And then if I'm getting, as I'm getting older, it's harder. So, but I at 2019, ended up getting taking like 4 bad headshots.
Wow.
Like I never got them diagnosed as concussions, but they were because
Yeah.
they were hard. One was with VSK. It was total accident. We
Yeah.
started in a match, bing, running high knee, and bam, I just ate it. And that was I think on me. That was on me, but I ate it. And then actually when I wrestled with Julio from Brick City Boys, we did Germans, and somehow we cracked heads somewhere in there. And he was giving me a German, and I don't know what we did or how it happened, but I remember twice in that match, my head just bam right in the back of my head. And I'm like, wow.
Wow.
Like, what is that? I don't know if it was the mat or what, but So that was like spaced out. And then after that, I wrestled Rick Recon, and I was doing a German off the second. I've done that before. And we just kind of came down flat. He kind of came down flat and literally just sandwiched my head. And I remember after that one, I was just like, I don't feel good, man. Like, I'm just like, physically, I don't feel good anymore. And then like I was having like crying fits and emotional things and like all these things that I realized afterwards that that's what happens when you have a concussion.
Okay.
Is that there's a nerve that you hit that causes all these things to happen, all these emotional things and PTSD and all those other things. So, you know, that was like, after that, I was kind of just like, I don't know if this, you know, like I'd get ready to go out for a match and I'm like that adrenaline was gone.
Yeah.
I think I've heard people say that before in the industry and on other interviews, and they say when that feeling is gone before you walk out that curtain, it's time to hang it up.
Wow.
You know, like, and it was like that feeling was gone, and I was like, that was the first time where I was like, oh damn, like what am I doing? Like, I got to go to work tomorrow, or I have to live tomorrow, or you know, I'm going to be 40 and I'm already, you know, 2 ACLs, meniscus, 4 herniated discs. Like, you know, what am I going to be when I'm 60?
Yeah.
What am I going to be when I'm 50? You know, so it was like, at that point I started to think like, okay, this is probably a good time, or it's probably getting there, but I still had like, you know, stuff I wanted to do, but I already had a match booked for, I've been hungry for HCW with Chris Jokic. He's the real Croatian character, man. I hope something comes through for him. So I've always said, if WWE, TNA, anybody wants a Croatian guy, that's your guy.
Nice.
Chris Jokic. So he started his school out there. He's got his own school, Falcon Studio. He just started promotion, Crow Pro Wrestling. So he's just had the first show ever in Zadar, which is, you know, huge. So he's yeah. So I definitely want to give a shout out to him, and he invited me over there too. I did a seminar there, and had one match on the HCW show, and that was my last one, and I knew it. Like going into it, like afterwards, I'm like this. Like I knew it. I still had like a couple things after. With WrestlePro, but that was, to me, that was like full retirement. That was like retirement. I've had a couple of little things after that, but I knew that was like my last real one coming out.
Now, do you think that'll be the last ever match Mario Bokara has? Because as you know, retirements in wrestling don't really exist.
No, I know. TJ Crawford is one guy who's always been like, come on, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I always said I would love to, you know, still do that. So, you never know. I got to do a Rumble for WrestlePro after that, about a year or so after that whole thing. And then I got to do another tag match with Fallah.
Nice. Against
the, they were Bear Country at the time.
Bronson and Boulder, yeah.
Yes, at WrestlePro. So that was also like a really fun match for me. And then I'm living in Tampa, so while I was here, I got hooked up with Chris Silvio, who runs Death Proof Dojo. He was another guy from Rip Rogers. I also he was coming into TNA when I was kind of going out.
Okay.
So I never really got to talk to him there, but we connected through Rip. And then I also knew Matt Seidel from Impact, met him. He was an awesome guy. And he got in touch with me about, hey, the school's down here. You know, I have a school if you want to hook up or whatever, if you ever want to come work out. So that's what I did. And then Jay Lethal too has a school down here. So I would, periodically just stop in and roll around. I was getting into CrossFit just to kind of stay fit. And then I was doing a little coaching here and stuff like that. So, but I got hooked up with Chris, and he ended up getting his own spot. So I, I still needed to work though. I was always that. I always had a job.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how some people don't in wrestling or how they didn't, but I don't know. I always worked. That was that. You have to pay bills. You have to do this. I was just, unless you're physically unable to work, like you need to work. So, especially if you want to make it work. I knew guys like Crowbar and Simon Dean. They were going to school. They were wrestling every weekend. They had a full-time job. Like, so somebody puts like a GoFundMe out. It's like, go fund yourself, man.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. Like, you got to get to work.
Yeah.
So, but no, I forgot what I was talking about.
I was asking, will that be the last ever match Mario Bokara ever has? Or you said TJ Crawford hinted it?
Yeah,
Julio Cruz said at times when he wrestled you, that was a big test, and he's improved so much since. So,
yeah, I want to right now too. That's where I've been physically. I'd like to get myself into a little bit better shape.
Nice. Yeah.
Last year or two. I'm pretty real anyway about everything though. But my mom passed away the day after Christmas on 2022. And my last match I had was February of 2023. And that was with Craig Steele and Justin Carino.
Yeah.
It was Craig's last match, and he wanted to work with, I guess he was retiring. That was his last one. And I think we were both I don't know how I got involved in it too with it, but he wanted to work with me too, and Justin, but I think they felt like, triple threat would be better for all of us, because I don't think me and Craig felt like we could put on maybe as good of a match solo.
Yeah.
So I think the three of us together, and, Justin's another one. He's decade-long time friend and everything. So the Carinos are amazing. And Justin's always been awesome to work with in the ring. So was Mark. Like, I love those guys to death. Like, and I hope, Justin something comes through for him, because he's another guy that's consistent all the time. He's at the gym at like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
He works. He's got kids. Like, he's always doing extra work. Like, he deserves something to come through. I mean, a lot of people deserve things, but I think he's earned, something too. But Craig, me and Craig, that was our last match. That was my last one. And I remember after that, my neck was screwed for like, we did a superplex. Craig was power bombing me, and I had Justin in the top, and I thought Craig was just going to be like under me, and he like literally picked me up and like I was off the rope, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So, and he was like, we went, and I'm like, so I really kind of like felt like I had to torque Justin over to clear it, but everything was great. But I just remember that night, then once you start cooling down, and my neck was jacked up for like 4 months, finally went to the chiropractor and got it cleared off. But that was kind of like all right, man, like, I was also in the worst shape of my life at that point, getting in the ring. Like, none of my gear fit. I was my heaviest. Also because I was, just kind of mourning the passing of my mom. And, Christmas now is always a horrible holiday for me.
Yeah.
So like, I flew in on the 23rd. I got there at like 1 a.m. Flight was delayed. And as soon as I got there, I was like, we got to go to the ER, Mom. Like, legs were swollen, like just, and didn't think it was going to be what it was going to be. Christmas Eve, she seemed better. And I'm like, oh man, like they finally got her back, and she seemed like normal. And came back Christmas morning to, 10 o'clock to go. And she was already like under, and they said, yeah, she got worse like overnight. And I remember I held her hand for 2 hours, and I cried.
Wow.
And my sister did Christmas morning with the girls. And then she came over, and, we had to try to, put her on a machine, and it just wasn't, so, and then she passed the 26th, the day after, 12 o'clock.
Wow.
So so after that, man, it's
Yeah.
been like, you know, I remember I cut my hair. I cut my hair
Yeah.
like a couple months before, like literally 2 months before that. I don't know why. And that's where too, I was like, it just felt like,
Hmm.
I was like, it was just kind of like if that, we always said when people retire, that's when they cut their hair. So I was always like, kind of, but, after that, that's where too now I'm like, was just, I got to look at, you know, my health too, but it's just, being in Florida too, it's different. There's not, I'm not around as many people as I was
Yeah.
up north, but, you know, I was always, I don't know, I was always drawn to Florida. It was just too, I had a lot of personal issues with my family.
Hmm.
I still have personal issues with my father. So I think it was a part of coming down here too, was starting kind of fresh, and doing like kind of something on my own. But I've definitely grown and learned from a lot of stuff. It's
Yeah.
hard being out on your own for sure. Um,
The weather's nice over there too.
that's yeah, man, sunshine and palm trees. You know
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
snowing
Like,
in New England right now.
yeah. So,
I'm curious. You talk about everything you've done in pro wrestling. You talk always having a job. What is Mario Bokara up to nowadays?
so right now I'm actually working for a Ford dealership, and I
Nice.
do mobile service. So I
Wow.
do oil changes, tire rotations, brakes. I work on cars right now.
Nice.
I never used to actually work on cars. So Um, when I was in Jersey, when I was the last few years when I was wrestling, I worked for the local union. I did electrical work. I ended up working with my stepfather then for almost like 8 years doing landscape contracting, foreman. I was basically, I drove the trucks, trailers, all that stuff. Then when I got here, I ended up getting hooked up with a golf cart company,
Mhm.
which was funny enough. Everybody's like, you move to Florida and get like the most Florida job you can find, like
Yeah.
working with golf cars. But I was doing deliveries for them for like 3 years.
Nice.
It was a great company. I really loved the people there. Um, the pay is just not here in Florida. And when I first got here, it was also cheaper. It was a lot cheaper. Like a
Yeah.
1 bedroom apartment was like $600.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was also a bigger reasoning of, hey, let's give it a shot,
Yeah.
there. But I was doing that, and then once I transitioned into plumbing, didn't really work out. Then I was working at my apartment complex as a maintenance supervisor for about a year,
Hmm.
and now I moved in with my girlfriend in Tarpon Springs, and I'm working at the dealership down the road. So
Nice.
like I said, it's been about 4 months there, but I always keep in touch with Kevin Matthews, and he's like, "Did you ever work on cars before?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "How the hell did you? How do you like?" I'm like, "They're just like you're mechanically inclined. You can figure it out." So
Wow.
YouTube is also amazing. You can learn a lot of things on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, Mario, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I remember originally reaching out. I was saying to myself, I was like, I don't know if you will. The fact that you made this happen, man, thank you so much.
Oh no, man, thank you. I appreciate. It's just I sometimes I really like I haven't really been as active on social media
Mhm.
over the past couple of years just because
Yeah.
with everything, but I try to, but like, yeah. Then I totally was like, oh man, I'm like, I totally like no showed you. I was like, my bad.
Yeah. But I can't thank you enough. However, every interview I've done has ended the same. The day you decided to all done in wrestling, which isn't happening anytime soon, wrestling retirements, we know they don't exist. But the day you decided it's all done, what do you want Mario Bakara's legacy in pro wrestling to be?
Um, I definitely, I want people to, remember me as for, as one of the good guys.
Hmm.
Um, I think we've all made mistakes in wrestling. We've all had egos at time. We've all had um, bitterness, I think, at time, which comes at the same point with you're not satisfied with yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of people in wrestling, I think, to be in wrestling, you have to have thick skin.
Yeah.
You have to be not too sensitive. You also have to have a strong belief in yourself, and you have to have a lot of self confidence, and that's very hard to do. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with performing, um, and then you also have to deal with a lot of critics, people that they don't know you from a hole in the wall, but especially with social media today now, people can be just ruthless
Yeah.
on the things that they say to you. And, but legacy wise, I want to just be remembered as, a good guy, best, good, as best as I could be in the ring. Wanted to have the best match on the card with whoever I was into. And, just try to, just like they said, I just read it today, you try to leave it better than you found it.
Nice.
And that's the same thing, especially with, I was always, anybody, wrestling's for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that we had people that came in, people that had, they were deaf, they were, disabilities, and everybody can do it.
Yeah.
Everybody can get in here and do it. I don't care, it's just a matter of giving them the opportunity and, teaching somebody right. Like, if it's who am I? Who are you to tell somebody that they can't do something? Mm-hmm. Who are you to deny them of they're coming to you for help? And who are you to deny them and tell them to go screw themselves because you don't like them or you don't have time for them? So I always wish I had my own school at some point. So that might be something in the future that I'm, would like to work on.
Nice.
So.
Well, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for doing this. And like I said, thank you. From the first time I met you and watched you at like 12 years old to now I'm 20. Thank you for the impact you've had.
Oh, dude, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And kudos to you for doing what you do, because you're very successful at this, and for the amount of people and times that you've done and people that you've talked to too. Like, that's not an easy thing too, to get going and started. And, like the fact that you reach out to people and you make things happen. And we talked too about schedules. You have a busy schedule with this, and you're still going to school and doing things. So that's awesome, man. Like, kudos to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this, and thank everybody for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.
Thank you for watching this episode of Best for Business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, because this is Best for Business.